Saskatoon Public Library workers vote in favour of job action. Grassy Narrows First Nation files lawsuit against provincial and federal governments over mercury contamination. CRTC says streamers have to pay money towards creating Canadian content. UN Human Rights Chief condemns violence in the West Bank. And India's election results shock as Modi's BJP wins third term but falls short of a majority. Good morning. It's Wednesday, June 5th. I'm Nora. Here are your headlines. We start this morning in Saskatoon, where the workers at the city's public library system have voted to take job action, quote, up to and including a full withdrawal of services, unquote, meaning a possible strike. QP 2669, representing 270 workers in the city's library system, said 95% of members voted in favor of job action. While wage increases are part of the resulting breakdown in talks, the union says that they are also concerned about, quote, the employer's refusal to address serious safety concerns in the workplace, unquote. A 2022 survey showed that half the library workers faced violence on the job. In April, 4 branches were forced to cut their hours as a result of a worker and security guard being assaulted. QP 2669 told CTV's Rory McLean that its members are asking for, quote, common sense measures, unquote, to keep them safe, like provisions like walkie-talkies, security alert bracelets, and other measures that have, quote, been proven to reduce violence in libraries in other jurisdictions, unquote. The workers have been without a contract since June of last year. And in my own city, in Quebec City, our library workers, I think I mentioned it already this week, have been on strike for more than a month. And those workers are represented by UFCW. Next, Grassy Narrows First Nation has filed a lawsuit against both the Ontario provincial government and the feds over decades of mercury contamination and poisoning. The First Nation alleges that both governments failed to fulfill their responsibilities under Treaty 3 by failing to prevent mercury contamination in the English Wabigoon River system and failing later to fix it. This long-standing problem has been going on for decades. You'll know that on the daily news episodes and probably with just watching the news. Since the 1960s and 70s, a paper mill in northwestern Ontario dumped an estimated 9 tons of mercury into the water. The paper mill stopped using mercury in 1975, but members of Grassy Narrows continue to deal with health issues related to mercury. You will recall a story from a couple of weeks ago about a study that found that the same mill was intensifying mercury contamination in the English Wabigoon River system through its wastewater, and that specifically it was methyl mercury, which had highest levels. A different study found that 90% of the First Nations members had symptoms of mercury poisoning. Next, the CRTC is mandating that foreign streaming services operating in Canada, like Netflix and Spotify, contribute to a fund to help create Canadian content. Foreign streaming services would have to pay 5% of their annual Canadian revenues to that fund. That includes companies not affiliated with Canadian broadcasters making over $25 million per year. The fund would support content such as local TV and radio news, Indigenous content, French language content, and, quote, content created by people from diverse backgrounds, unquote. The CRTC expects that this fund will bring in $200 million each year, starting in September. This mandate is part of the Liberal government's Online Streaming Act, which is supposed to modernize Canada's broadcasting system. Motion Picture Association Canada, which represents many of the foreign streaming services operating here, is predictably not happy with this and says that the mandate doesn't consider the money these companies already contribute to the Canadian media industry. And folks, if you're wondering, if you listen to Sandy and Nora on Spotify, I know a lot of you do, Spotify has never given us a cent. They don't give us anything for all of the hours that you tune into Spotify, that you pay to tune into Spotify to listen to Sandy and Nora. We've received nothing. Now to international news, and first to the West Bank. The UN's human rights chief Volker Turk put out a statement condemning an increase in violence by Israeli forces and settlers directed at Palestinians in the West Bank. According to the UN, since October 7th, Israeli forces and settlers have killed 505 Palestinians in the West Bank. And remember, there is no Hamas in the West Bank at all. In his statement, Turk said, in addition to the killings in Gaza, quote, the people of the occupied West Bank are also being subjected to day after day of unprecedented bloodshed, unquote. This comes as there were attacks just a few days ago that resulted in the killing of two Palestinian teenagers, 16-year-old Ahmed Ashraf Hamidat and 17-year-old Mohammed Musa al-Bitar. Turk blamed long-standing impunity for Israeli forces who shoot, maim, or kill Palestinians in the West Bank. In addition to the increase in violence, there's also been an increase in the amount of arrests in the West Bank. According to the Palestinian Prisoners Society, 9,025 people have been arrested since October 7th, including 300 women and 635 children. Many Palestinians are arrested without official charges and are kept in administrative detention without any recourse in a system that actively works to keep them there. You might also call them hostages. Many Palestinian prisoners also report torture and abuse during their detention. And finally, after weeks of voting, India's election results are in. Incumbent Prime Minister Narendra Modi and his party, the BJP, won a third term but fell short of forming a majority, to the shock of party members and pollsters. However, the BJP-led alliance of parties called the National Democratic Alliance collectively won enough seats for a majority. The BJP not securing enough seats will mean that it will have to rely more heavily on the alliance of right-wing parties. The BJP has promised its supporters that it would win 370 seats. Instead, it lost 60 seats from the 303 it won back in 2019. Modi and his government have been criticized heavily for relying on Hindu nationalism, resulting in rising violence and hate crimes against religious minorities in India. Part of the criticism against Modi was that this went against the secular values enshrined in India's constitution. Those are your headlines for Wednesday, June 5th. I'm Nora. I didn't say this. I'm coming to you from Edmonton. I'm in Edmonton, Alberta. I love this place. I got to be honest with you folks. I think that this is a great city. I'm happy to be here, and I'm going to be here for a couple of days, so wish me luck for my work. That's why I'm here. You are listening to this podcast at sandyandnora.com, on the Real News Network podcast feed, and anywhere you get your podcasts. I hope you have a wonderful day. I hope the sun sets. I'm recording at night and it's looking like 9 o'clock in the morning. Oh my God. I'll talk to you tomorrow.